Outrage over the NAACP's remarks about the nation's only black U.S. Senator, Tim Scott of South Carolina. Now, the head of the group's North Carolina chapter just called Scott a ventriloquist dummy for the GOP. Here's the senator's response to those offensive comments.
We're not talking any longer about standing up for the rights of a racial minority. We're now talking about finding a way to have a conversation about philosophical bigotry. This is a brand spanking new day because there is a major threat coming from the right. And it's not moving further to the right. It's actually having a conversation where we embrace people who are in need and in trouble. And we show people, as I was shown, the path forward using basic common sense principles that govern the actual economy.
Philosophical bigotry. Dana, Tim Scott says we'd have to have a discussion about this. It's something that African Americans, I think, in the Republican Party have dealt with for a very long time. Is it time to have that conversation? And instead of maybe focusing on the advancements of blacks, which the NAACP doesn't seem interested in doing, talking about how they go after blacks even when they reach the highest of high points in their career and become a U.S. Senator just because they're a conservative?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to go after somebody who, presumably the NAACP has fought for the right of the individual and the ability to stand for equal ability for anybody to do whatever they want to be able to do in America, which is what Tim Scott has done. I don't understand why the NAACP and others continue to get themselves in this position. When asked about Tim Scott, why can't they just say, he's a nice guy, but I don't want to comment on his politics, and just let Tim Scott be Tim Scott? What I admire Tim Scott for actually not doing what I would probably do. My instincts would be to say, I'm not going to comment on those remarks. Instead, he's decided to take them head on, and I do think that's probably necessary and good for us.
Mm-hmm. And Greg, he has told FoxNews.com, when he's talking about Martin Luther King Jr., that it's better to emphasize love rather than extremism. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't he maybe take his own advice?
Well, it's okay. The case of Tim Scott, NAACP, it's the puppets calling the marionette black. Because if Scott's a dummy, then they're a legion of Punch and Judys, because their strings are being pulled by white liberals for years. It brings up a point to me that in this modern era, the most open-minded people happen to be conservatives because they look at flaws and differences as things you can improve upon, which is what Tim Scott was saying. Mm-hmm. The left refuses flaws and differences, refuses to acknowledge or accept them because they wish to destroy and start over. That's why they wish death on everybody or condemn people, the entire left, Bob. But that's why, you see people as more forgiving on the right than you do on the left. And the hypocrisy of the self-designated tolerant is that they're only tolerant to people they agree with.
And Eric, if you look at some of the things that he said also, he said we need to talk about what's right versus what's wrong. He seems to say one thing and then do another, and then when he's called on the carpet, he doesn't walk it back. I mean, he's really not sorry for what he said to the senator from South Carolina.
As you walk through the restaurants, we find people that are trapped, stuck in poverty, because you believe in the conservative positions. He goes on and on. It's almost getting, it's getting tiring. We have a black president, we have black senators, we have black heads of captains of business companies, we have black entertainment channels. Where is there racism? I don't think there's racism. I think the only people perpetuating racism are people like this gentleman from the NAACP, are the Al Sharptons of the world. Let's move on. Let's move on. I don't think the right is to blame for anything that's right. You know what's to blame? President Obama can be to blame for a lot of the unemployment in the black community. Black unemployment is 16.5%. Black unemployment among young people approaches 40%. The last 5 years have been President Obama's. He owns it. He could fix it. He hasn't really helped the black community out too well.
Bob, where are the rest of the figures in the black community to condemn these kind of comments? Or do they speak volumes by saying nothing at all?
Well, I'd like to quote J.C. Watt, who was the highest-ranking elected black official in the United States Congress, who said that the Republican Party has a damn long way to go before they get themselves in a position to attract blacks. And he's right. The Republican Party has consistently, over the years, done nothing in an affirmative way to attract blacks. That's one of the problems they have. Now, they have not.
What are you talking about?
I'd like to know what it is.
one example is education and school choice and No Child Left Behind. In particular, that was precisely for minority-based students because they were the ones that were getting left behind at schools all across America because of the soft bigotry of low expectations.
I'll give you partially on No Child Left Behind, but beyond that, I don't see. I think J.C. Watt was right when he made these comments that the Republican Party has not been. Now, I would not have called these kind of words are inflammatory and not necessary. My guess is there's probably some politics of South Carolina going down on this deal. But you know, the NAACP has done more, I think, in terms of alleviating the black condition than any other group in the country, not the least of which is to fund the Kansas Board of Education. I don't understand why it is that black conservatives always feel like they're they're disenfranchised or nobody likes them.
He didn't say anything.
He just said that, though, Bob.
He's being disenfranchised by the NAACP.
No,
right
I said,
there.
why is it that they believe? No, maybe I didn't phrase that right. Why is it that black conservatives believe that nobody listens to them, that they have the answers, and that we're constantly downing them out? Now, some of them do.
Bob,
who said that?
The scariest two words in a white liberal dictionary is Alan West. If they see him walking down the street, they cross it and get fleeced by Al Sharpton. It's white liberals in every whether it's on social networks or on TV that mock black conservatives. The way they treat Maya Love, the way they treat Alan West, the way they treat Tim Scott. It's not an exception. It's the rule.
And they do the same. And you know what? And the Democratic Party does the same thing to women.
It was Alan West at a town meeting that said 79 to 81% of the Democratic caucus in the House were communists. Now, what are you going? Where are you going?
It was off by 10%.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's you and Alan West deserve to be in the same corral together. When you hear things like that from people like West, what do you expect us to do?
Okay.
Well, now you just contradicted yourself.
How
did
did I
the
contradict
Democratic?
myself?
Can I ask you something, Bob?
Why do they
we have
feel put
topic.
out? And then you said that's what they expect.
Well, when they say things like that, there's a reason to be put out.
We have to move on.
I don't know what
Bob,
this guy's got.
Answer me this. Did the Democratic Party get together this week and say, we're just going to say the most inflammatory things about anyone we're threatened by this week? Because listen to this. Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York State, comes out and says that people who are pro-life and extreme, in his view, do not belong in the state of New York. Now, Glenn Beck was also on the Kelly File last night and said these words.
I will tell you that Governor Cuomo sounds a little like the governor of Alabama when he was talking about the Freedom Bus and saying that Martin Luther King and those who want to march with Martin Luther King and be on the Freedom Bus should get out of the state. There's no place for those people here.
That may be the most foolish, ridiculous, disgraceful.
How?
No wonder
Why?
the son of a bitch
Why?
is off of TV.
Why?
Because when he equates Andrew Cuomo with one of the most racist governors there were, who allowed black people to be lynched in his state, who never put together a jury, never allowed any blacks on a jury, and Glenn Beck, is equating him with with Cuomo, Governor Cuomo. It's ridiculous.
Instead, how about this?
He ought to leave the state.
Let's instead talk about what Cuomo did say. He did say.
And he didn't say conservatives, by the way.
He said right wing. I guess.
Yes, that's a little different.
Aren't welcome in the state of New York. Can I just tell you something? Conservatives, especially the right wing, the Tea Party, are for smaller government, lower taxes. Right now in New York State, across the country, is running ads. Come to New York. A tax-free zone if you come bring your business to New York, which would be exactly what a right-wing extremist conservative principle would probably be. Yet Cuomo's running ads for New York, paying for these ads for people to bring their business to New York. So he maybe should have to leave New York. By the way, that would make him a right-wing extremist.
I think Cuomo had bad choices of words, but he did not say conservatives. You all are conservatives. I don't think he suggests you should leave the state. He's talking about right-wing.
He talks about, he's basically saying, if you don't fall in line and agree with me, Greg, then get out of my state, a state that a lot of people elected him to, but it's not his state.
It goes back to the conservatives think liberals are wrong and liberals think conservatives are evil. That's the inherent flaw. They refuse to face opposition to their ideas. They'd rather have you go away because they're terrified that their ideas will wilt like wet noodles right before your eyes. So instead, just get out of my sight. Go away.
Well,
Yeah.
that's I don't believe that.
Or become sheep and agree with what Cuomo believes.
I don't believe that. I
And
don't
you know
agree
what?
with that.
No, I think America needs to know what Andrew Cuomo believes, Dana. Andrew Cuomo in his Women's Equality Act believes that at any point in a woman's pregnancy, she can just terminate it. And a majority of Democrats do not agree with that. He also believes that, hey, gender selection, you're having a girl, you don't want a girl, have a boy, do that. He's the most extreme, and only 16% of New Yorkers agree with him. So only 16% of people are allowed to stay in the Empire State?
Oh, that's just...
Well, that's what he's saying.
Well, aside from those...
That's what conservatives do that get us crazy.
Aside from those issues, basically New York, and New York City in particular, has been practicing economic hostage-taking for years. This is the place where people need to be to do business. If you want to be in media, publishing, now in finance, high tech, this is where you have to be. I can't wait for the day that I don't have to be here. I mean, I love this show. I want to be a part of Fox News. But if I didn't have to live in New York City, after people are so mean here, I cannot believe how horrible.
We moved the show to Dallas. I'm for Dallas.
No, I'm for Charleston.
Can I just point something out? Last time we talked about this,
Savannah.
This blew up on Twitter when you and I had this discussion, Bob. Outside of New York City, and 4 of the 5 boroughs, Staten Island, I would say, is very red. New York State, upstate New York, is an extremely conservative population. They love America. Can I say that? Is that a fair?
Does that mean that those of us who are not conservatives don't love America?
Well, no.
And
but
why doesn't
they like smaller government?
Why doesn't Cuomo try to do something that other leaders would do, like Madison, who said you have to protect the rights of the minority? Why not?
He never should have used the words he used. I agree.
Right, he doesn't use those words, and then he gets the apology. Somebody else says he gets the acceptance and the forgiveness. Republican says something that's outrageous, and they're forever, you know what, under the sun, from here to kingdom come.
God, you
Which
all
rhymed.
do feel like you're being put
Because,
upon.
well, wait, because we are.
You did. What did you just call Glenn Beck?
What, for comparing the governor of New York with George Wallace?
Bob, the point
he was
making
he was comparing to the idea that what he was saying, the intolerance of the ideas.
Well,
and if there's a minority, in any way, whether it's a racial minority, a minority that believe in life, if it's a minority that believes in whatever, they have rights too. And that's the problem. The Democratic Party doesn't seem to understand it. Everyone should have rights. Don't they? Shouldn't they?
No, you don't say the
there's also
Democratic
Miami.
Party is as a
All right,
general
let's
statement.
go. We're going to move the show to Miami.